So the US government have just legalized spying on their own citizens for a very, very vague reason. And I think it's worth talking about in this video because if you are a US citizen or you live in the US, it's worrying the trajectory that the US is going with this. Welcome to Waffle House. This is the channel where we talk about all things related to digital privacy in the US. So if you do want to hear more about this sort of stuff, make sure you subscribe at the link down below. The Republican-controlled House approved a 3-year reauthorization of a divisive US surveillance program ahead of its expiration on Friday, adding new oversight measures but stopping short of the warrant requirement that critics have demanded. Now, annoyingly, this article talks repeatedly over and over again about how this has been extended, but it takes a while to get to the point, so I'm just going to cut straight to it. The debate centers on a provision of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or the FISA, that allows the CIA, National Security Agency, FBI, and other agencies to collect and analyze communication from foreign targets without warrant. In doing so, the agencies can incidentally sweep up communications involving Americans who interact with foreign targets, an element of the program many lawmakers find unacceptable. Now, the problem with this, and this has been probably a big criticism that I've seen online about this, is that it's so vague. So, for example, say if there's a piece of information that ties you to someone in the UK. For example, you talk to someone in the UK by replying to a comment that they put on Reddit, and that person has a link to another person, and that person has a link to someone that could be a potential terrorist suspect. Not just terrorism, anything, drugs, whatever it might be. Anyone that's under any suspicion in any other country, the United States government can pretty much justify spying on absolutely anyone if that person is any way, shape or form ever had any direct line of communication with that person. Now, talking about your digital privacy, which this video, focuses on, there are things that you can do to help obfuscate your location and your internet traffic. One of which is by using a VPN, for example, private internet access at the link down below. With that link, you get 2 months free and 87% off, and they don't keep any logs of what you do online. So even if a government subpoenas them for your browsing activity, they can't hand it over. Also, one subscription will work across all of your devices, so check it out at the link down below. It only works out around about $1 a month anyway. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Now, I understand the sentiment from an anti-terrorism perspective. I can understand why there may be some support for this legislation. I have no doubt that this could have the potential to prevent some form of terrorist attack. But a byproduct of that, the cost of that, is everyone in the US being susceptible to having all of their communications intercepted. Now, when this was originally passed, because this is now a renewal of the same law, but when this was initially passed, they stated that when they brought it into effect that they would clarify if it actually bears any fruit, and if it didn't, they would stop it, because there's always been resistance to this piece of legislation. Now, what's actually happened is that they've renewed it and not provided any data on what data was collected. They've not told the people whose data was collected that their data was collected. Essentially, we've seen no results, that they've just decided to renew it. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that any US citizens' data has been breached in any way. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that this gives the government a legal, acceptable way to access user data in America, and they can justify it by being extremely vague. Like, for example, if someone comments on one of my videos that has had a link to terrorism and I lived in the US, for example, that would make me somewhat susceptible to having my private information breached, because by their own definitions, I've had communications with a terrorist or a suspect. That's how vague the laws are, and it's the vagueness that's causing a lot of concern. The ability for this to get abused repeatedly is what's really, really, really scaring people. So that's what you need to know about this for now. This is constantly evolving. This article is actually a couple months old, but it kind of got buried. So things are going to be evolving with this long term.